All right, so volume and surface area review. The test is tomorrow. The test and the review are laid out exactly the same. Please make sure that you know all of your formulas and that you won't know all the names of your shapes. There will not be any word banks. Formulas will not be given to you. You are expected to come in prepared with those memorized. On each problem, your work is worth just as many points, if not more, as your answer. So please make sure you are showing me the formula, you are showing me the numbers that you are using, and you are writing your answer down correctly. Please make sure you always include your measurements, and please make sure your measurements are written down correctly. If I show the work on this review, I will expect to see it in your work on the test. All right, here we go. All right, the first set of problems, we are finding the volume. We have a formula for volume, so every time you do one of the problems, I want you to write the formula. Even though it's going to be the same on each problem, I do expect to see the formula written down. So for number one, we have volume equals length times width times height. Since this is multiplication, technically the order does not matter. As I work each of these problems, I'm going to choose my height to be the length that is going from the bottom to the top, which means my length and width are always going to be the alternate numbers. Again, the order that you're choosing these will not matter because when we multiply, we'll get the same answer. So when I do mine, I'm going to choose my length as 5, my width as 3, and my height as 4. Again, showing my formula, my numbers. Now I multiply using my calculator to get the answer, and I get 60 inches cubed. Make sure that when you're doing volume, it is to the third. Please make sure we've been doing surface area. Remember, area is flat, so that is squared because it is 2 dimensions. Volume is the space inside this 3 dimension, so it should be cubed. So please make sure in your answer you have inches to the third. All right, for my next problem, again, we're looking at volume, so V equals length times width times height. So this time for my length, I'm going to choose 12. My width, I'm going to choose 11. And for my height, I'm going to choose 20 since it's going from the bottom to the top. Again, the order doesn't actually matter. We will get the same answer when we multiply. We should get 2,640 centimeters to the third. All right, on number 3, we have, again, a rectangular prism. Finding volume using the formula length times width times height. My length that I'm going to choose is going to be 2 7/8. My width, I'm going to choose 1 2/3. And for my height, I'm going to choose that 2 that goes from the top to the bottom. All right. At this point, please make sure that you can type in those fractions using your calculator correctly, or you can work out the fractions correctly. If you are not getting the correct answer, but you're using those numbers, I need you to see me in the morning so we can figure out either is there a setting in your calculator wrong or are you typing it in wrong, and get that figured out before you take the test. So when I multiply that in, I should get 9 7/12 meters cubed. Right. So the next one is still volume, so V equals length times width times height. All right, my length here, I'm going to choose 24.3. My width, I'm going to choose 5, and my height is going to be 8.1, trying to squeeze that in there. All right, when I multiply that out, I get 984.15 yards cubed. I kind of ran off the screen there. All right, making sure on every single problem, my formula, my numbers, my answer. On number 5, looks like it might be challenging because there are words. Please do not let the words freak you out. If I read the problem, it tells me a packing box is 1 5/7 meters long, 3/4 meters wide, and 1 1/2 meters high. When I read this, I'm automatically seeing LWH. Then it asks, what is the volume? There is no need to draw out that picture since I have a formula for volume that says V equals length times width times height. And it clearly told me 1 5/7 long, 3/4 wide, and 1 1/2 high. All right. Once I type those in, please make sure you can type those fractions into your calculator correctly. I get 1 13/14 meters cubed. On number 6, it tells me a swimming pool is 3 feet wide, 90 feet long, and 7 feet deep. It's asking again for the volume. Hopefully we noticed as we read that this time those numbers are in a different order. It doesn't say the long, the wide, and the height. It gives me the wide first. So when I use volume equals length times width times height, I'm going to choose my numbers a little bit more carefully this time. L for length would be that 90 feet long. W for width would be the 37 feet wide. All right, and then 7 feet deep is going to be my height, because if I think about a swimming pool, it's not going to go up high, it's not going to be above ground, but I would still measure that height going down, so that would be my 7 feet deep. Technically, we'll get the same answer no matter the order, but because it does specifically list these as wide, long, and deep, I would want them in the correct order, and we get 23,310 feet to the third, or feet cubed. Okay, all those problems are finding volume, using the formula, working it out the exact same way. Hopefully, these will be an easy part of the test that we can breeze through. The next part is where we're finding the missing dimension. All right. When we did the problems up above, just to review again, it was formula, numbers that we multiplied and got our answer. So formula, numbers, we multiplied and got our answer. Our work here is going to look similar. But one of the big differences is it starts off by telling you what the volume is. To me, this indicates that I'm going to need my formula. So I'm going to write down V equals length times width times height. All right, I've mentioned to y'all as a class that we want to be more and more comfortable using these formulas and applying the algebra technique of solving equations. So we're going to write our formula, and now I'm going to put the numbers in that I know. So where it says V, it told me what the volume was, so I'm going to write the number 540 there. That dotted line just helps me to make sure my equal sign stays in a straight line so that I can keep my work organized. The next letter is L. If I look down here, it gives me L in the problem, which means that's what I'm missing. So I'm just going to leave L. It doesn't give me a number, so we're going to put L. All right, for my width and the height, I can choose whichever one I choose. Again, at the beginning, I stated I was going to keep my height going from top to bottom, which means I'll use 12 as my width, so 5 would be my height. The order there would not cause us to get an incorrect answer. All right, we wrote our formula, we wrote our numbers. Just like above, our next step is going to be to multiply. The numbers that are together that we can multiply is 12 and 5. So that's going to give me 60. Nothing else is going to change. 540 is still going to come down. My equal sign is still going to come down. And I'm still going to keep my L. So I have my formula, my numbers. I multiplied the two together. And now we do have one last step. Since L has a 60 in front of it, remember, this is multiplication. To get rid of something, you're going to do the opposite. The opposite of multiplying is to divide. And if I divide by 60 on one side, I must divide by 60 on the other. 540 divided by 60 here gives me 9. Keep my equal sign on that dotted line. 60 and 60 would just give me 1 L, which is just L. So we just mark out the 60 divided by 60 to cancel it and bring down our L. All right, so it's great that we have 9, but just like everything else, these are all measurements because we are finding a dimension. All right, so we need to put a measurement with our 9. All right, remember, the volume said yards cubed. I don't need the cubes because that only goes with volume. Think about it. The height was 5 yards. The width was 12 yards. So my length needs to be 9 yards. We're not putting any extra numbers with that. Volume gets cubed. Area gets a squared. This is just a length. So please do not put anything with that. All right, for number 8, it's still giving me the volume, so I'm going to use my volume formula still. V equals length times width times height. Now this volume is a little bit longer, so I'm going to try to do my line. The number is a little bit longer, so I did my line a little bit closer to the edge. So I hopefully will have enough room. The volume it gives me is 53,165. And you can see when I wrote that number in my work, I didn't put any commas because I don't want to confuse them with decimals. The length Nothing is left as an L, so I can pick which number I want to use as the length. I'm going to use 31. If you use 35, it would not change our answer. Since I used 31 there, I have to use 35 now as my width. And it does give me the letter H, so that's just going to stay there, which means I'm missing my height. We had our formula. We wrote our numbers. The next step is going to be to multiply. So we're going to multiply those two numbers that we have next to each other. When I multiply those two numbers, I get 1,085. Sorry. All right, and everything else I'm going to bring down. So 53,165 and my H, and I'd already written the equal sign there, so I didn't leave it out. Okay. Our formula, we have our numbers that we multiplied. Now we want to divide to get rid of the 1,085. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. 53,165 divided by 1,085 gives me 49 equals the 1,085 on top and bottom will cancel, leaving me with H. So 49 equals my height. But we need to know 49 what? 49 miles, 49 feet, 49 inches. What is it that we're talking about here? And it did say inches. All right? And it is just the height, how high it is, so we're not going to put squared. We're not going to put cubed. It's just 49 inches. All right? So that should get us through the volume. Hopefully tomorrow we can come in feeling confident. Make sure that we understand the process for each problem. If you have a question about the process, come see me in the morning. We can practice with a few extra problems. All right, on the back. And guys, on the back, I want you to make sure that you read the directions. On all of our homework, it's given me 2 blanks. Here, I'm counting on you as being a soon-to-be 7th grader to be able to read our directions and follow them. The first thing it says is to name each figure. Even though it doesn't give me 2 blanks, every time we've done one of these problems, we've named the figure. We need to keep that up because my directions tell me to. I know I have a tendency to get in a habit of just like doing area, and forget to do that. So I'm going to go and name them first. When I name my first one, it has more triangles, so it is going to be a pyramid because that's what gives me my point at the top. And then the only shape that's there is triangles, so it must be triangular. All right, number 10 has a bunch of rectangles, so it's going to be a prism. And the only shape there are rectangles, so it must be rectangular. As it is important, I will not be giving you a word bank. You do need to know these terms. All right, number 11. Number 11 is special because all of these are squares. And if I have squares that form a 3-dimensional object, that object is called a cube, which is a special type of rectangular prism, but the best description is a cube. So when we fold that up, it should look something like a Rubik's Cube. It'll look like a dice. Those are the first 2 cubes that you see every day that come to mind. Okay. All right. So let's look at the next one. All right, number 12. Number 12. It has a lot of rectangles, more rectangles than any other shape, so it is a prism. So the rectangles name it a prism, but rectangles my only shape here. We also have triangles, which that's what classifies it as the type of prism being triangular. Again, those rectangles made it a prism, but the fact that it also had these triangles on it makes it a triangular prism. Number 13 kind of works similar to that. This one has a lot of triangles, so that's going to make it a pyramid. A pyramid because the triangles are going to form the point. All right, it doesn't just have triangles, it also has a rectangle. So that rectangle is going to classify it as a rectangular pyramid. So again, the triangles make it a pyramid. The rectangle makes it rectangular. All right, so now that I've gone through and named each figure, now I'm going to work on the surface area. On your test tomorrow, if you want to do it that way, name them first, then go and do the surface area, that's fine. If you want to name them and do the surface area at the same time, that's fine. It's completely up to you. All right, so when I look at number 9, this is the back side is where we've had the most trouble. So let's make sure we take this slow. If you have questions that you don't feel like I answered in this video, please bring them to my attention in the morning, or you can always message me on Remind. I'll be happy to respond. All right, so when I'm looking at this shape, I can see it's a bunch of triangles, but specifically this triangle in the center has the most information. We are talking about area, and the area formula for a triangle is area equals base times height divided by 2. And that's a formula we learned about 3 weeks ago, and hopefully we still managed to retain. All right, now looking at this rectangle, I'm always looking for a triangle. This is a triangle. All right, looking at this triangle, triangles always have right angles to help me find the base and the height. Remember, it's very important my base and my height meet at a right angle, because that would be like if you go to the doctor and you want to see how tall you are, you're not going to lean against the wall. You're going to stand straight up. So here's my right angle, which is awesome because it's like, bam, there it is, easy to find. But I only have one number on that right angle. I only have the 10 feet. So that's telling me my height because it's going through the middle. This 20 feet, guys, this is going to be an equilateral triangle. So an equilateral triangle, all of my sides are the same. So all the way around that triangle, it's going to be 20 feet. So now I can clearly see my base is 20 and my height is 10. So I'm going to plug that in. My base is 20. My height is 10. I can't forget to divide by 2. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 20 times 10. And then I'm going to divide by 2, and that gives me 100. All right? Now 100, that is this triangle right here in the center. All right? Guys, all those triangles are the same size. So we're going to have 100, 100, and 100. All right? So now I have the area of every single surface. You have 2 options here. Since all of them are the same and there are 4 of them, I can just do 100 times 4. Or my other option, I can take my 100s and just add them up. Well, 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100, when I add that, is going to give me 400 feet squared. We are going to make sure we square that because it is area. All right? When I grade this, you're naming it, that's going to be 2 points. The number that you get as your answer is 3 points. The measurement is 1 point. The work up here, since there was just one shape that I had to do, that's just going to be 2 points. Each shape that you have to calculate is 2 points on its own. All right? What that means to me when I'm checking it, if you get the answer wrong, I'm just going to mark it wrong, put -3. Then I'm going to look at your work. If your work is right, that means you just did like a calculation error, then it just stays -3. If your work is wrong, or you do not have work, then that's automatically another 2 points I'm taking away. So you've got to make sure you're showing your work, write the numbers that you're getting in each shape. Okay? Number 10. All right, number 10 is one that a lot of people have come to me for help with throughout the day today. So hopefully I'll be able to explain this clearly, and it's kind of hard on a video because I don't know what questions I'll have on the other side. So when I look at this problem, what I see is this 8 inches right here. And if I look, that 8 inches is measuring from this distance to this distance. Well, that 8 inches is also this distance to this distance. That distance hasn't changed. I can also go up here. That's still 8 inches. My fingers haven't gone further apart or closer together. It's 8 inches all the way down. So what I'm going to do, just so I know where my numbers are and where my base and heights are, I'm just going to write in 8 inches for each of these. Now the 8 that I'm writing is really small because I don't want to think that it's the number in the middle, that that's my area. So I'm keeping that 8 really small to try to keep it out of the way, but it is information that could be helpful. All right. the next thing I notice, I have 1.3 inches here, so that's this little distance. All right, that's going to have to match over here. Right now, that doesn't seem to be helping me much. All right, that doesn't seem to be helping me much, so I'm kind of stuck with that. Okay, my next thing that I'm noticing, there's 4.3 inches, which is going to match the next side because that's not changing. So that's 4.3 inches. And then right here is going to be 4.3 inches. Okay, that's all I've got right now. So let's go from here and see if there's any shapes that give me a base and a height. In fact, right here automatically in this bottom shape, do y'all see where I have a base and I have a height? So to me, that's like, bam, done. Let's do that shape. All right, so there's my arrow. I'm talking about that bottom rectangle. The area of a rectangle is A equals BH. The base of that rectangle was 8. The height of that rectangle is 4.3. When I multiply those two together, I get 34.4. And I'm going to go ahead and write that in here because I know that measurement. All right, here's the cool thing about rectangular prisms. I know that they have to match because like the bottom has to match the top. The left side has to match the right side. The front has to match the back. So when I'm looking at this, I'm looking for which part is going to match. This rectangle looks like the same size, so that should be my matching part. Okay, I got to think a little bit more again. All right, so I'm not seeing any other ones where I have a base and a height, so I'm going to have to be a little bit more creative now. All right, I'm going to pause it for a moment. All right, so from here, what I'm thinking in my head is how do these things fold together? And I'm looking for my little example. There it is. All right, so at this point, I just want to take a moment to remember that this side of that prism and this side of that prism, when I fold this prism up to make my 3 dimensions, those two sides have to go together. So my two sides here have to match. So I'm going to put my arrow there to show that that 1.3 has to match. So now I do have a base and a height. So now I'm ready to do this triangle, this rectangle. Whew, if I can name my shapes, we'd be good. All right, so the base here is going to be 8. The height here is going to be 1.3. When I multiply, we should get 10.4. Oop, did not mean to put that circle there. Oh well. Okay, so here we get 10.4 in this circle, pretending I didn't circle it over there. In this rectangle, the rectangle that matches, this one looks the same size, so we're going to put my 10.4 in that rectangle. All right, now we're down to just 2 rectangles. What's awesome about these 2 rectangles, they are the same. So, if I look here, in fact, do I have a little highlighter? Yeah, there we go. All right, if I look at this rectangle, I'm given these 2 sides. If I look at this rectangle, I'm given the top and the bottom. If I put that information together, I'm going to get a base and a height. So from right here, I can see that 1.3 is going to be my base, and I can see that 4.3 is going to be my height. So this one has more room, so I'm just going to point at that one and say my area, sorry, I got pins rolling around up here. My area equals base times height. We just said that in the blue is going to be my base, which was 1.3. I know it's tiny, kind of hard to see. And my height here is going to be 4.3. When I multiply those together, we get 5.59. So that means this shape is 5.59. And this shape is 5.59. To find my surface area now, all I need to do is add these up. 5.59, 5.59, 10.4, 10.4, 34.4, 34.4. I like to try to keep the pairs together so I make sure I don't leave any out. When I add that up, I get 100.78 inches squared. All right, and we're ready to start our next shape. Okay, so we are on number 11. All right, so 11 is one of the best shapes because it's the easiest shape. This is a cube, which means all of my sides are a square. So if the bottom is 5 yards, since it's a square, I know the side is also going to be 5 yards. All right, from here, we know every single square is the same square, so I can just go ahead and work out this one square using area equals base times height. It's a square, so my base is 5, and my height also has to be 5. When I multiply those, I do get 25. So that means every square on this cube is going to be 25. Once we write that in, we have two options. We can list it out and add it up. Or, since there are 6 squares, I can just multiply by 6. Just so that I'm consistent, I'm just going to write that I'm adding them. If you would prefer to multiply, that's absolutely fine. Please do so. So 25, 25, 25, 25, 25, 25. When I add that up, I get 150, making sure to put my yards squared with that as well. All right, and there's the name. Just boxing that in so it's clear that I have 2 answers on every single problem. All right, number 12, the dreaded triangular prism. This one can be a little bit challenging, but we got it. All right. So we have 19 feet down here at the bottom. Now remember, if it's 19 feet here, as I move up, the top of that rectangle is also going to be 19 feet. Remember, I'm not writing it in the box, just on that line, very small. Same thing here, we're going to have 19 feet, again, very small. All right, now I'm going to take a look at this because automatically I noticed when I was writing that 19, oh, I got 19, I got 14, that's a base, that's a height. I can go ahead and do that area. So area equals base times height. That base is 19, my height is 14. Again, and you can see there's the base, there's the height. So that gives me 266. So this rectangle is 266. All right. My next one, I'll notice here, look, in the middle, I have, again, 19 is the base, 13 is the height. So that's another one that I can go ahead and work out. I'm going to work it out over here since I have a little bit of extra space there. A equals base times height. My base is 19. My height is 13. And 19 times 13 gives me 247. So I get 247. Bam. All right, so now I've got to get a little bit creative. Remembering again, when I'm looking at a triangular pyramid, how that folds up. So when I'm looking at that triangular pyramid, remember that this 15 and this rectangle, those are going to have to fold together to match. So just kind of showing that so we can visually remember that 15 and then this piece of the rectangle, they're going to have to fold together to match. So that means I know this 15 is really given to me as part of the rectangle, not even necessarily as the triangle. I could need it on the triangle, I might not. So now I have 15 feet, which gives me a height, and I already had a base. So we can go ahead and do this one. A equals base times height. So I get 19 was my base, 15 was my height, and 19 times 15 is 285. So I get 285. All right. Last two. So we have these two triangles. All right, this is what I like about prisms. It's kind of like a tunnel. These rectangles are wrapping around to find the tunnel. Now my tunnel has to be the same on each side. So these triangles, they look the same because they are the same. They're the same measurement. So once I find one, I'm good. All right. Now here's the thing to remember about a triangle. And I'm going to do this one since this one has all my numbers. Area equals base times height. We have to also divide by 2. All right. So now remember, base and height have to meet at a right angle. So if I look here, this is not a right angle. This is not a right angle, but right here is where we see that 90 degrees. So that's going to be my right angle. And I can see that I have 13. I have 13, but I need to know this other measurement. And again, going back to how that triangle and rectangle, when I put them together, remember those two are going to fold up together. So I know this 14 feet is also going to fold together as that side of the triangle. Okay? So again, remember these two are going to fold together when I fold that up to make the shape. All right, so that's where I got the 14. So now there's my 90 degrees. Don't forget that's very, very important. So I have 13 and I have 14. So I'm going to do 13 and I'm going to do 14, and then we're going to divide by 2. Okay? And 13 times 14 divided by 2 gives me 91. So I get 91, so that's that triangle, which means 91 is also this triangle. Right? And I don't have as much room to write out my addition, so I'm just going to use my calculator and add 266, 247, 285. Make sure I do 91 and then 91 again as well. So adding all 5 of these numbers carefully in my triangle, in my calculator, I should get 980 feet squared. Cool, cool. All right, the last one. Yay! Here we go. Number 13. For number 13, we did name it. Oh, forgot to circle. So there's our 2 answers there. Rectangular pyramid. I'm going to circle that because I know that's one of my answers. We already did that at the beginning. Okay. Here we have that rectangular pyramid. So we do have to be careful. I think it's really obvious that these triangles are not all the same. So we are going to have different numbers in there. So let's be very careful about that. When I'm looking at this, I love a rectangle. Rectangles are so easy. I love them. So let's do that rectangle first. All right, formula for a rectangle is just area equals base times height. My base is 14. My height is 2. And 14 times 2 is going to give me 28. So I know inside of here we have 28. All right, so that was pretty straightforward. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll just start with this top triangle. It is a triangle, so it's area equals base times height divided by 2. All right, we need a base and a height. Again, remembering that base and height have to meet at a right angle. Guys, there's my right angle. So I have to have this line as my base and this line as my height. Well, it shows right here that 6 is going to be my height, but we've got to figure out what that base is going to be, what the length of that line is. All right, if I look at the other side of that rectangle, it tells me this line down here is 14 centimeters. Well, the bottom of the rectangle has to match the top of the rectangle. So I know this line up here is also 14 centimeters, which does give me my base. So now I can do 14 as my base. We already said 6 was our height divided by 2. When I multiply that and then divide by 2, that's going to give me 42. So this triangle is 42. All right. This one had a base of 14. This one also had a base of 14. For those to meet at the top, they are going to have the same height, which means I know they are the same triangle. So that one's also 42. So I have my 2 triangles here. So now I just got to worry about the smaller triangle. So I'm going to go over to this side and do area equals base times height divided by 2. All right, again, base times height, looking for that right angle. There's that right angle for my base and my height. All right, so I have one measurement. It tells me right there that that's 6, so that's nice, but I still need the base. I still need to know how long the bottom piece of that triangle is. Same concept, using that rectangle. The right side of the rectangle should match the left side of the rectangle, so this side should also be 2 centimeters. So therefore, my base is going to be 2. So I get 2 times 6, and then I'm going to divide by 2. Well, if I do 2 times 6 divided by 2, remember, multiplying and dividing are opposites. So I'm actually going to end up back at 6, because 2 times 6 is 12, and then when I divide by 2, I do get 6. So just like we've seen with that algebra, those 2's, they cancel because I end up with just the 6, which was there. All right, sorry, that was a little tangent off on the side. Okay. So I have 6 when I multiply and divide. So 6 is going to be that triangle, and 6 is also going to be over here for this triangle. All right, so I'm going to add those up, making sure I keep my pair. So 42 and 42, 6 and 6, and then I also have 28. So that just helps me if I keep them paired up to make sure I have all my numbers involved. And when I add that up, I do get 124 centimeters squared. All right, and that is going to be for that last shape. And I'm just going to kind of make sure we put the arrow over there. So my surface area is 124 centimeters squared. All right, guys, I really hope that you've taken the time to look at every single problem. Please remember you will see every single one of these shapes on the test tomorrow. Please make sure you are extremely familiar with the names. You will not get a word bank. Make sure you're familiar with area being squared. On that front, volume, make sure it's cubed. This is our last test before we get to our 9 weeks testing. So make sure we want to finish the year strong. So, hashtag finish strong. Please make sure you take some time in this test. If this study guide has taken you longer than 40 minutes, all right, you need to spend some additional time going back and practicing these problems because you do only have the class period tomorrow. All right, guys, I hope you have a good night, and I'll see you bright and early in the morning.